So today we're going to be doing a bit of work with Spectrum Noir Illustrator Pens. And for this, as you can see, I've got my fundamentals in front of me. Tea and cake! And a fork, of course. You've got to have a fork to eat cake, it's the correct thing to do. And these are set on a Denby plate and a Hornsey plate with a nice purple mug. Now, this is a staple. Uh, Actually, yeah, we are going to be working the Copic illustrators, but I just thought I'd share some tea and cake. And the little reason there's a tissue under my cup is because I'm always knocking it, so I don't like tea going everywhere. The cake is a Christmas cake, so it's a fruit cake soaked with sherry, and as you can see there is a good portion of marzipan here and a thin slice of icing. And this is got cherries, sultanas and raisins in, but we don't do dried peel because I have an intolerance to dry peel. Aren't I lucky? So yes. Well, you gotta. It's more fun to draw on a full stomach than it is on an empty one, believe me. And I can put that happily, safely. Right, so today we're going to be having a look at the Copic Illustrator pens. I'm just going to put my hand there to try and stop my camera doing its little shaky. Right, and this is more of a request to do some questions that came up on the forum today, on the Spectrum Noir Connoisseurs forum. And the colours that are causing a little bit of worry are these ones. So we've got, it's from what I understand, it's one packet in particular, and it's what they class as the flesh tones. So you have the FS2, because that's right, FS4, FS5, FS6, this isn't easy to say with a lisp, FS9, which is ivory, and EB2 and EB7, and these are what are classed as flesh tones. As a few of you will straight away pick up, even though the numbers correlate, the colours don't follow. So FS5 and FS6 you would expect to be in the rough areas, yeah? But as you can see, the FS5 is more red based pink, whereas the FS6 is more yellow based. So those two to blend aren't going to go 100%. But the FS4 and the SS5 are more likely to go. The FS2 is in a league of its own. So if you are buying this pack and this is the only one that you've bought, you are going to need to have a little bit more thinking time before applying these to any images. So with these colours and these colours alone, we're going to create an image. So the first thing that I would do is I will find my image. Now I'm going to be working off my computer screen because I've run out of printer ink right now, so I can't print anything. And the first thing I do is, if I'm working from a picture or a photo, I get a piece of spare card or paper, something a bit thick, and I punch a hole into it. Now you can use a hole punch for this, or you can ram a pencil through and just smooth off the edges, or in my case it was kind of just stick a pair of scissors through. And when you've got your photo, so I thought I was prepared today and I guess I'm not. So you've got your photo, say, and you want to do a colour match. So imagine this is my photo. To do a colour match, you take that piece of card with the hole on and you put it onto your paper, and you look at you ignore everything else and you look at what's in that hole. Because what will happen is when you see a huge image, your eyes are going to become too full of detail. You're going to be trying to absorb far too much, and that is going to confuse you, and it's going to throw your visuals out because you're going to be seeing so much colour and you're not really going to pick the right colours. Even though you think you are, when you come back later you'll notice that maybe you could have picked a different colour. So by refining it down to a tiny small hole, it doesn't have to be this small. I tend to work small because I want high detail. You can work in a bigger circle, by all means. In fact, some of us actually do punch 5-6 holes of different sizes into the card, and that way we can move it around and get a really good idea of what the colours that we actually want to focus on. This technique works really well if you're doing metallics, so if you've got to work out how to make gold, silver, copper, bronze, anything like that, instead of looking at it as a whole, you refine where you're looking, and that way you will actually find the exact colour. It's so much easier, and I do this a lot when I'm working with pro markers and normal Spectrum Noirs and Copics. All of the markers, even with colour pencil, a little bit of card with a hole in, refine the colour that you want, and that can be a major help. Now, in this case, these colours we're classing as flesh tones, and in fact, if you're clever, you can normally, let's see, right, so I'm just enlarging that hole on the hole, so there's a little bit of a larger hole, so it just takes away no matter what you look at. So on here, let's bring the camera in so you can get a better idea. Oh, inish. Right, so say I wanted to pick up on this tone between the mane and the head, I just put that down, look at that, ignore the rest of the image, and I can straight away see that that would be like a C2 or a cold grey, and then I can move it over here and say that's a bit darker, that might be next grey up. So that's why I definitely recommend, if you're going to do a big drawing or you're going to do something where you're not 100% sure on what colours are going to go where, do that, and it'll settle your eyes in, and it'll make you feel a little bit happier with your confidence and what you're going to approach and draw. So these colours, bit of a spectrum. So I've broken my pens actually into groups. We're going back out. Whee! Sound effects. So I've put my, I'm going to put that away. That's a blender, so we're not going to use that. Well, try not to use that today. So I've got my EB2 and EB7 as one group. And if you're going to work with a real variation of colour types, it's a good idea to keep them in there almost like colour families, but not colour families. So in the middle group, I've got the FS2, the FS5 and the SF4, because on my chart, FS4 and FS5 should be together. FS2 should be a league in its own. I thought that was wrong. And then I've got the so hard to say, FS6 and the SF9 together. Now the reason I've put those two together is because they've both got a yellow tint. So that's how I want to keep those pens. I don't want to get them together and then get confused or muddled up. Now with the Illustrator pens, of course you have the more bullety type tip, and then you have the brushy type tip, which is quite soft end. This end piece is very soft, so you do get a lot of ink once you put that down. Right, so cardstock for drawing onto today. We're going to go all the way because the pens are from Crafter's Companion, and we're going to use a Crafter's Companion card. I don't know what GSM it is because when I got it, it had no information whatsoever on the packaging. All I know is it's by Crafter's Companion. So I'm just going to put them, still keeping them in their groups. I've got to watch that cake as well. Might get pulled in by a strong current. So I've got my colour chart as well. I'm going to keep that just close by, and that way I know roughly what I'm going to get. So we got the white paper. You want a paper that is thick enough to take the markers because of the amount of alcohol and ink that's going to come through, and that isn't going to buckle too much. Now, on one of my previous demos, I taped down the paper with framers tape, and that was because the markers that I was using were going to be so saturating the paper that it would probably buckle the paper and cause problems. My printer chap does not like buckled paper. In fact, I used the wrong paper for a demo that I did with Spectrum Noir pens on a horse. Oh my goodness me. He was not a happy bunny. So normally I would actually framers tape the whole thing, but in this case I'm just going to do the corners. And this acts like if you're using watercolour paper. So if you were doing watercolours, you would tie your paper down, so when it expands and contracts, it's not going to cause too much trouble. Another really good paper stroke card stock to use, Bristol board. When I first started using markers, I used to use the Pro markers. Bristol board was the only thing that I could really get, and I could just about afford, because it's always been quite an expensive one. But that you get a nice absorbency rate. You can get bleed through the back, but it's not too bad. But it does handle markers really well. Some of the marker papers are really thin ones. Not so good. The only thin one that I've ever successfully used is American Bond paper, and I used to get that from Ryman's. Sadly, they don't seem to do it anymore. I have asked if they start producing it again, but apparently there wasn't any demand for it, and yet they've still emptied the warehouse of it, so I couldn't even buy back stock. Now, for the image, hopefully my little friend here will work. Now, a lot of people are going to stamp an image. That's gushy. Make sure that you're using an archival ink, because you don't want the pen's alcohol to play around with the ink. So if you're stamping an image, make sure it's stamped, you've given it time to dry, and that time to dry is going to be pretty important in all truth. And that's something you just need to be aware of. I used to leave some stamped images actually overnight, and that was literally just to ensure that we had a nice clean image and a dry image to work from. So we're looking at flesh tones today. I think Kate's stalking me. I just found a picture of a Chelsea bun on my computer. You can tell what I was thinking on that day, can't you? Right, so the image I am going to pick, I apologise about this, I did have it up and then I lost it. Oh no, can't draw a beer belly, can we now? You would think an image with a bright yellow person in it would stand out, wouldn't you? Right. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to be doing this little drawing freehand, so it's probably going to have a lot of errors in. You guys won't have to worry about that. I'll say with any images. So it's going to be quite a loose image. Because today I'm literally just want to show you guys how you can use these pens to work to your advantage. So I'm going to bring the camera in just while I'm fuff-tiddling with this quick sketch. Right. Head goes up there. Stand there, we've got neck there. Hand here. And she has a massive great big radio there. You can guess what occupation this person is. So, in fact, this is only going to be a quarter drawing. I've done it slightly larger than I planned. Right. Now, where I live down in Dorset, We do get a lot of sunny days, which is brilliant, and that actually affects the skin pigmentation of a lot of people. Something else that you need to also take into consideration is depth and shadow. Now, in this skin tone, with these colours, you don't get what I call colours that you could use to do your shadows and things like that. Now, with alcohol markers, if you let them dry fully, you can use the same colour to create depth. Though it's sometimes not as effective as if you used other browns, blues and greys. I prefer to use blues and other colours instead of grey because sometimes that can leave a drawing too flat. Okay, so my rough drawing. Like I say, we're going rough today. I'm just going to quickly change one of those angles. Two of those angles. Taking a cat. I have company today. Okay. Right. So this is a rough figure. So first thing I'm going to do is have a really good look at the colours that I can physically see. Then I take my card with my dot and I put it to my image, in this case on my computer screen. So I then need to know where my light and dark areas are. So I know my darkest area is going to be under the neck and following through, and also I've got a little bit of kind of dark area here. Maybe a little bit under here, places. So I check where my darkest areas are. And just make sure that I'm happy with that. I'm just going to take those out because I don't want the pencil to come through. Right. Secondary thing, if you get, when you're working, don't use your hand to wipe, because if your markers are still wet, you might smudge them in. Use a little makeup brush or a light fluffy brush like that. And that's going to help keep your image clean. So the first thing that I would actually do is start a base layer by taking the ivory, or in this case the FS9, and letting the pressure go. Using the brush tip is fill in the image, and that's going to act as the base layer. Now it depends if you want to work on wet or if you want it to dry and then add layers. I personally prefer to work wet on wet, but that does mean that you've got to work a little bit faster. As you can see, I'm just carefully mapping bits in. Now that looks an okay colour for skin, but it's got a bit more yellow in it. So that's fine if you're doing a really fast sketch, no problem. I can let that dry and then put another layer of that over there. I'm just going to zoom in and sort out the sharpness. There we go. But I want to add in shadow and detail. So I'm going to take my FS6, which is, as we know, a bit of a darker colour. In fact, it's actually more orangey. So I'm going to put a little bit, and this is the key, is your quantities. You don't want to completely cover the drawing or the stamp image. You're going to use some of these colours, but in small amounts, and then if you use your lightest colour, in this case the FS9, you can use that to blend it out and tone them down and work them. So in this case, one tiny bit just under the neck and around here, and I'm only putting the tiniest bit of pressure onto this pen. Now in this case I want to work wet onto wet, so straight away I'm back with the FS9 and I'm just quickly going over it. Now a lot of markers you'll use circular motion. With these you don't quite have to use that motion so much. And you'll note that I'm coming back out into the main image, and that's just to add a little bit more depth. Okay, so you've got a little bit more darkness there, a bit more tone. So again, going to come in, find my darkest area, and just put a tiny bit of that in there, and there. Sorry, you can hear a funny noise. My cable is rubbing right now somewhere. I don't know where, but it's rubbing. And just making a little bit of feathery marks there. And then once again, back in with the FS9, and this time I'm going to use the bullet tip because I just wanted a little bit more control. And that's where, for laying down your colour, the brush nib is going to be great, but for the refinement you want to use the smaller nib. And again, we're going to push that back, but then join up the bits that need joining up. So I'm next going to take my EB2 and I'm just going to put the hair in. Now the EB2 is the lightest of the browns in this set, so you can use it like the ivory. Now, if you're drawing real people, you will notice that they are different to stamped images. And the hair never quite looks so shiny. Okay, then I'm going to use the EB7 for the darkest areas. This with the bullet tip again. And once again, I'm only putting a little tiny bit here and there. And now I'm going to actually bring in the the FS6. Now the reason is that I know that this should act as a filler. So this is going to act like the ivory. So it's going to push a lot of that colour back and give me nice mid-tones. Now I can come back with the EB2 and fill in a little bit of the detail. Now for the arm, this young lady actually did have quite a bit of sunburn. Mind you, her job does involve a lot of sunshine. So I can use the FS5 and the FS4, but combine them with the FS9. So we'll start with the FS4 and just block in a little bit of the shadow areas. Now yeah, this does look quite a strong pink, but that's once again where you want to come in and you're going to blend through. This lady was very well built as well. Mind you, the amount of swimming she does every day, she'd need to be. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just literally, I'm not putting in solid blocks of colour, I'm kind of feathering, so just lightly, little bits, because we don't want the whole image as this colour, we just want enough to define areas. 2, 3, 4. And then I can come in with the FS5 and just add a little bit more of dark area. Okay, and then coming through with the FS9. I'm just gonna add in the line work that I need there, just to double check where I am. Now with these pens, if you do go over your lines, you can always use your blender to bleach them out, so there's always that option. And then what I'm going to do is use the FS6 to add a little bit of that tan colour into there. Right, now just for our sake, I'm just going to grab a couple of colours to fill in her shirt to make the shapes make more sense. Bear with me. Right. Just need to put a couple of those. So I'm just going to grab have a colour which is just going to push the uniform forward. This colour isn't actually in the thing, so please ignore this colour while it just goes down. Just want to get this bit down. Okay, so that's the colour of the uniform, put roughly down. Now back to the face. So those colours that I've put into the arm, I should technically, the colours that you put anywhere need to be throughout the drawing, especially when you're doing people. So I'm going to bring in the SF4, and I'm going to start to add a little bit of depth into the jaw. Once again, it does look quite a sharp pink, doesn't it? But don't panic. So in this case, I'm picking out some of the spots which, and once again, we're going for those darkest areas, so you're almost looking at it as blocks of colour. So if you imagine a person is lots of ovals and shapes, a bit like the old painter masters used to do when they used to do cubism and things like that. If you break people down into those sort of shapes, it does help. Okay, so next we go to the FS5, which is our darker colour, and once again we're going to push into those shadows. With these pens, it's kind of almost all about layering, so the same ideas as nearly every alcohol marker out there. The more layers you apply will either go two ways. It'll either work and give you a really stunning drawing, or you'll overlay it and it'll start to go muddy. So you just want to keep control of that, and that's where using that little bit of paper with the spottykins in means that you can click your colour matches and you're going to be much more close to what you're after. And then I'm going to bring in the FS6 to start to blend. You see, I'm just concentrating quite literally on the areas of shadow. I know there's a lot of colour swatch things on the Spectrum Noir website where you can print off bits and then follow the tutorials and such. And then there's all sorts of ones online, as I'm sure everyone's aware. But sometimes I would say they will only give you a certain amount of information and they're telling you what colours you need to go for. Sometimes you need to go and sit outside in any old weather, if you can, and do some people study. I mean, if you're not looking for realism, that's cool, but if you want to make your characters stand out a bit, as you can see, we've gone back to the FS9 to blend all this out. If you want that little edge on your figures that you want the light and the shadow to work, and even the cartoon character you can make look realistic with your colouring. I would definitely recommend people watching. Take a note of the colours that you see around you. Take a few photos if you can, without getting arrested. And then when you get back home, take the photo, take your spot, and see if you can find a pen that's going to match that colour. And when you do a little stick figure even. Stamp out one of your favourite stamped figures and apply that, and just see what happens. So as you can see, I'm using that FS9 to just blend everything together to achieve that smoothness. And then for me, what I would then do is being more of the art side, I'd then start to put in the detail. Now, if you do have the blender pen, of course you can use that. Now, I wouldn't recommend putting your blender pen straight over a drawing, but you can of course use it to bleach out any areas that you don't feel you're happy enough with, like so. And I think mine's leaking. Right, bit embarrassing, bear with me, I need to get that off my hands. It's like almonds. Of course, as with all marker pens, make sure you keep them away from small children and pets. We all love small children and pets, don't we? It's just for normal safety practice. So at this point, if I'm doing a drawing where I've laid down the pen first and then coming through with the detail, this is the area where I would start to play around with my detail. You can see the paper there just lifting slightly, and that is because of the amount of alcohol that's just gone in there. So that's why I definitely say it doesn't hurt to tape down some of your images. This is a very, very, very rough sketch for me. But I just wanted to give you a rough idea of how you can actually manipulate these markers. So you are literally going to be looking for blocks of colour. You're looking for areas that are going to work together. Now, for adding depth and shadow to an image like this, so for example this area here where the other arm is, you're going to want a bit of shadow under here, but also you're going to want a little bit of shadow under this piece here. So it's not just the kind of under there and under the neck. So to do this, if you were looking at really, really, really dark shadow, I'd be brave and try something like actually putting the EB2 under there. Now you're probably saying, you what? But the EB2 is dark brown. It is, but look, it will go with the FS9, which will bleach it out a bit, and the FS6, which will tone it down a bit. So even though it's a dark brown, well, going into the browns family, you can still combine it and blend it through, so those three almost go together. So let's put that to the test. So EB2 onto this piece of the arm. Yeah, that was scary, didn't it? And then down here, along here. So you're saying, trust me, I'm an artist? Except I'm not. Right, so next, got FS6, and we're going to blend that out. Soften it up, take away that harshness. Next, we come in with the FS9. Go over, soften up, and blend in. Now, next thing I can do is going to be SF4. There's tone in this area, so I'm going to add a little bit of tone here, and also a little bit of tone over there. Add in the SF5 into that darkest area, because when you look at shadow, for instance, let's get some shadow on my hand here. Right. I don't know why this camera shows my hands as bright red. They're not this colour in life. Actually, they're very pale. Right. So if I do that, please do not be grossed out. Right, my areas of shadow tucked in here, they may look different from here, but it's the same principle of colour is here as in here. So you can't really just colour this colour in the dark colours. You need to still reflect these colours within that, because that's what the colour is, and it's got to carry through on here. So if you go to do a shadow, don't just put greys, dark browns, things like that. Remember to put in the base colour as well, because that's what is going to make the drawing look more realistic, or well, it's going to look more natural. You'll get depth and three-dimensional from it, so it's well worth it. So that's why the colours up here and here that I've used, I bring into here. What are you wiggling around for? Oh, my dear little Bilbo is rolling around. She's a funny cat. Right, so line's a little bit harsh. Now instead of going for the ivory, I'm going to go back to the FS6. I apologise about saying E all the time. It's because I'm used to working in other markers. So yeah, I'm used to working in a lot of E number markers. So once again, bringing that one in, and that's just going to soften but keep those colours in. Now for the highlighted areas, that's where I'll bring in the ivory, and I just put a tiny piece on there. It's literally just a dot. Now if I wanted to push that shadow back a little bit, I can put a bit more of the ivory on there, and that brings in that shadow. So as you can see, we used all of the colours bar the FS2, but you can use it. Once again, I'm looking at my photo on the screen, and would you believe it? The colour is there. It can be picked up in the skin, and the reason I've left this to last is because it's a low number. It'll have a bleaching effect. See, just this piece here. So I can use that to give a very, very, very gentle highlight. So instead of using my FS9. Yeah, I think I just contradicted myself there, I am aware. Normally with low numbers in markers it means lighter colours. FS9, yeah, let's call it an exception to the rule. So, moving swiftly on, FS2, this is where this comes in. I can literally use that instead of a blender pen, instead of the lightest, the ivory, and it's got enough tone to it that it's going to give a hint of a gentle skin tone. It's going to take away a lot of that yellowness. This person is not jaundiced, and this is where I would use this, because even though I've got that undercoat, and I still do want a little bit of that undercoat to show through, this colour is just going to combine everything. Once again, I can bring it in there, and I can bring it in there. So that is a way of using all of those skin tones to create, as I'm hoping my camera is now showing, a blendable skin tone. Because skin isn't one colour, it's tons, it's indescribable, it's an organ of your body which has more colours than you can imagine. People classify it, right, I don't want to sound racist or anything bad, so this is nothing bad. Basically, people class themselves in groups of white, yellow and brown, don't we? It's not that simple. Skin is beautiful in all of its aspects, and when you're using markers you can really push that beauty. But these colours, for me, they work. I feel comfortable with them. I can push the colours that I want. Now, if I was drawing somebody from a more African background, I will confess I wouldn't just use EB7. I'll be bringing in blues, purples and other colours, because there is that rainbow of colour within the skin. And in fact, if you have a look at elderly people's skin, you'll see more blues in there, and you'll see more violets in there. If you look at baby's skin, you'll see other colours again. So try not to get trapped in the stamp an image, follow the colouring thing. Have a little bit of a look around. You never know what you will find. It's absolutely brilliant. I've started working skin tones this year due to having to do humans and people in my coursework for a course that I've been doing. And you know what? I could spend all day drawing people now. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a different colour. This is Canary. And as you can see, because it's lighter than the original colour that I plonked down, it's bleaching it out. So we're just going to quickly finish up the drawing. In fact, I am missing a massive piece of detail on here. This piece is more canary. Right, I just want to add in so I can get those fingers divided. Sort that thumb out. Right, this piece came down and went that way. Great bit of kit, that. I'm sure a few of you can recognise this piece of equipment. And we'll just quickly bring the rest of the uniform around. Right, so that's just added a little bit more colour to the uniform. Now, if I was doing hair, I would probably use the FS6 to act as a lighter layer and to almost bleach out parts of the hair. So in a sense, this isn't just a skin tone kit, this is a kit where you can use it to create some nice hair effects. And if I really wasn't too sure on that, I'll come in with that lovely ivory. Ivory is a really diverse colour. You can use it for nearly absolutely everything. In fact, it pops up in the most peculiar places. In fact, if I add a little bit of this to... Yeah, my hands... If I'm doing a proper drawing, proper refined drawing, my hands are a lot better, but this was speed drawing, as you probably noticed. And if I come back and I re-look, because really important thing to do whenever you're doing things like skin tones, step away and observe. Look from the left, or right in this case, look from the other side, look over it, plonk it upright, and then reassess your drawing and reassess these colours. So in this case, I know my arm is well and truly drawn badly, I will not lie. I need to add a bit more highlight. So the highlight that I want though isn't yellow, so I can go and get my FS2, which is that very dusky pink, and I can bring that in. And this time I can really push that highlight, so apply it much more. Now if I overdid that and suddenly lost a lot of that detail, I can come back to my SF4 and just very carefully apply a tiny bit, because it's your quantities that are really going to matter. I can put a little bit here and a little bit there. And I can redefine those areas. If I'm not happy with that redefinition, I can take the next marker up, which would be the FS5, and I can come in. Now this is working wet on wet, so you'll see that it is blending a lot quicker. I can come in, I can redefine those areas again. Yeah, this is a terrible sketch even for me. And I can push that definition. Now if I'm not happy with the amount of pink that comes in, I can come back with the FS9, and this, because it's closer to the blender with the amount of alcohol in, I can push that through, and because it's more of a yellow base, it'll take back a lot of that pink. A little bit more applying, and I'll blend it back. And as you can see, there's a difference here between the two parts of the images. You've got a lighter version where there's less ink put on, and a darker version where there's more ink put on. And so it's going to depend on how much you apply to what effects you get. And you can keep on pushing them back and pulling, but you do need to just be aware of how far you can go. But yeah, so that is how I would approach using that group of colours and working with them, working through them. And if you make a mistake and you do have a blender pen, then that's going to help you, because you can just push back that ink, push it through the paper, and get that detail that maybe you're looking for that you've lost. Now sometimes if you bleach it too much, you'll notice it will go a slightly greyer colour, and that's where these lighter colours, once that's dry, you'll need to leave that to dry. Once that's dry, you can come in with these lighter colours and just do almost like a wash effect over them. So I'm just going to quickly add a little bit of detail into this. Sorry, I'm very fastidious. Might be a speed sketch, but it still just needs a little bit of definition. So that is the ways that I would approach using these pens. I hope this has helped you all, especially if this is the only set that you've got. If you're not too sure on the markers and you've just bought one set, or even just two sets, and you've gone for the flesh tones and you're not 100% sure about the blendability, because when you see them on paper they do look scary. There is no doubt that they do look kind of how can these be compatible? But it's up to you to have a play, have a blend, and just go back and forward, light layer, next layer up, dark layer, push it back with the light layer. Even if you just do a circle, seriously, just draw a circle, say half's your light, half's your dark, and then colour one side in the dark and work on the light, and then in the middle have a no man's land where you literally are going to blend back, forward, back, forward, back, forward. You can do it, but you just got to try and keep on practicing. Spectrum Noir Pens, on their website, they do offer several tutorials, and also there's an accreditation program which I would highly recommend, and that goes over a lot of the basics of the colouring with them, so it gives you some really nice hints and tips. And they've got some very, very good tutorials there if you're a little bit kind of, I'm not too sure on how on earth did you get that colour, and how do you, basically any of your how do you kind of questions. A lot of that is answered on those pages. So thank you very much for popping over. And in fact, you'll see this character drawn properly hopefully in the next few weeks, because I took this photo a few years ago during a war memorial parade, and it's actually a group of workers. You've got lifeguards, you've got paramedics, you've got police, you've got marines, you've got the whole lot. And they were all kind of walking together, and it was like a army of lifesavers. But once I do that, I'll probably put a tutorial up as well, just showing how I will work through that properly. So I hope this has helped inspire you to have a go and take those pens and get playing, see what you can create. So till next time, wishing you all the best, take care, and happy drawing.